Hello, loom knitting friends. Let's learn how to do this CDD diamond stitch scarf. It's a 4-row repeat that I have broken down for you in manageable steps. I created this stitch pattern after experimenting with center double decreases, or CDDs. So I'm going to call this the CDD diamond stitch until I hear that this stitch already exists and already has a name. So please let me know in the comments if you've seen this stitch pattern before. Thank you for watching Ms. Yarn. Please like and share this video if you found it helpful. Today we're going to cover number 1, how to mark your loom. Number 2, how to cast on and how to tighten that cast on. Number 3, how to do the 4-row repeat. This will make the CDD diamonds. And number 4, how to bind off. For the supplies, you're going to need a long knitting loom. Mine is from a brand called Knit Quick and it's from Michaels. I used 1 ball of bulky yarn. I used Estelle bulky, and this scarf ended up being 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters wide and 64 inches or 162 centimeters long. You can also use Charisma number 5 as well, as you see in this example. Just be aware that Charisma is heavier than Estelle bulky, so your fabric is going to be denser and less flowier than mine. And as for the remainder of the supplies, you'll need a notebook and pen to keep track of the 4-row repeats, as well as a hook, a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and something to mark your loom. For the purposes of this video, let's call the pegs along the top the A pegs, and let's call the pegs along the bottom the B pegs. Along the B side, mark pegs 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And if you want a wider scarf, as shown here, mark up to 17 pegs and see the video description below for more details. We're going to cast on by doing a figure 8 cast on. So we'll put a knot on the anchor peg at the side of the loom, and we'll wrap peg 1A counterclockwise and peg 1B clockwise to make a figure 8. Then we'll make more figure 8s like this towards the right. I used 9 pairs of pegs, but you can use 13 or even 17 pairs of pegs, like I did with this light purple piece using Charisma. So I've wrapped 9A, now I'm going to wrap 9B counterclockwise, then re-wrap 9A clockwise, and then I'll make figure 8s all the way to the left of the loom. Let's retrace our steps and make new figure 8s right over top of the old figure 8s. Now I'm wrapping peg 1A and knitting over to secure the working yarn. And now let's knit over all of the bottom loops on the A pegs. Now let's knit over all of the bottom loops of the B pegs, so from 8B to 1B. And now we want to tighten this cast on so that our cast on edge isn't too loopy. So let's go to this bump at 9A and pull on it with our hook. Then we'll pull on the bump at 8B and then 8A and so on. Let's work our way all the way towards the left of the loom in order to remove all of this extra yarn. So as you're watching me take out this extra yarn, let me give you a general tip about casting on and binding off. These 2 steps are quite tricky, so make a swatch so that you can practice. It's hard to get the tension right, so extra practice is going to help you. So I'm at the left side now, So let's pull up the last bump at peg 1B. As you can see, we have a lot of extra yarn. Now let's remove the slip knot from the anchor peg. And we're going to pull that yarn towards the left, making sure that no loops fall off the loom. Now let's pull that yarn tightly and then make a knot. Now we'll lay our yarn across the loom, and now our cast on is done. Now before we get started on the CDD diamond stitch pattern, let me do a quick intro. Firstly, you can see the 4-row repeat on the screen, and it's typed out in the video description below if you want to copy and paste it somewhere or read it with a screen reader. Secondly, I want you to understand where we're doing the center double decrease. We'll be doing those CDDs on rows 2 and 4, and I'm showing you how we're going to do it on pegs 3, 7, and 5. And thirdly, this stitch pattern uses the stockinette stitch. So I'm letting you visualize it here so you know what to expect. Let's start row 1 with a stockinette stitch. Wrap peg 1B, 2A, 3B, and so on. At the right side of our loom, let's wrap 9B, 9A, and now let's wrap around all the pegs that we had skipped. Peg 1A is the last peg that we're wrapping for the moment. Now I'm checking off that wrapping step on my paper. Next, we knit over the bottom loops. We start at 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. Then we tilt our loom to do 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B. Let's tilt the loom again and knit over on 9A, 8A, 7A, and 6A. Now we move to 9B, 8B, 7B, and 6B. Let's push down our work and notice how each peg has a little bump on it, like a little turtleneck. And let's mark this step off on our notebook. And now row 1 is done. Now we're on row 2, and it's time to move loops around and do 2 center double decreases. We want to put extra yarn on pegs 3 and 7. Move the loop from 2B to 3B. Then move the loop from 4B to 3B as well. That is the first center double decrease. Now let's do a CDD on peg 7. Move 6B to 7B. Then move 8B to 7B as well. So that's another CDD that's done. Let's check it off on our notebook. And now we'll wrap our pegs for the stockinette stitch. Let's check off the wrapping step. We'll knit over on peg 1A to secure the working yarn. Then we move to peg 9B to knit over. then 7B, and we'll knit over those 3 bottom loops, and then 5B. Now let's knit over on 9A, 8A, 7A, 6A, and 5A. Then knit over on 1B and 3B. On 3B, you'll knit over 3 bottom loops. Now just knit over on the remaining 3 pegs. And you'll notice that there are not bumps or turtlenecks in front of every single peg. That's normal. Now let's make a check mark in our notebook because we've completed row 2. Row 3 is just like row 1, so I'll go through it a little bit faster. Let's wrap our pegs for the stockinette stitch. Let's check off the wrapping step in our notebook. Starting at peg 1A, we knit over and go towards the center. And then knit over on 1B and go towards the center. Now from 9A, we knit over. And finally, from 9B, we knit over and finish up. Let's notice that every peg has a little bump or turtleneck in front of it. This observation can come in handy. If you're ever unsure of what row you're on, just note that when you see all of these turtlenecks, you've completed row 1 or row 3. Let's check off row 3 in our notebook. Row 3 is now complete. Let's start row 4 by moving some loops around. Move the loop from 2B over to 1B. Now let's do a CDD on peg 5. So move the loop from 4B to 5B, then the loop from 6B over to 5B. Next, we need an extra loop on peg 9, so move 8B to 9B. And then let's check it off in our notebook. Now let's wrap in the stockinette stitch. While you're watching me wrap these pegs, let me mention that I learned the CDD stitch from the Good Knit Kisses channel and the Loom channel, so let me link to one of those videos above. Now we'll leave a check mark next to the wrapping step. We'll knit over on peg 1 to secure the working yarn. We'll jump to peg 9 to knit over the 2 bottom loops, and we'll be very careful. We need to make sure that the top loop does not fall off the peg. I'm knitting over on peg 7B, and then I'm going back to my notebook to make a correction. For this last step, I'm scratching out 8B and I'm writing 7B. Let's continue where we left off by knitting over on peg 5B. There are 3 loops to knit over. Now let's tilt the loom and knit over on peg 9A and work towards the center. Now knit over on 1B and 3B. And then 2A, 3A, and 4A. Excellent! Let's push down our knitting and then mark off the step in our notebook. And now row 4 is done. You now have what you need to make this CDD diamond stitch scarf. Just keep doing this 4-row repeat until you have your desired length. But do stop after you complete row 1 or row 3. That's when we need to meet again for the bind off. So here I'm nearing the end of the ball of yarn. My scarf is 64 inches or 162 centimeters long. I have just completed a row 1. Now to set things up for the bind off, we need to do a figure 8 stitch. Just take note that the first 3 sets of pegs need to have normal tension. The middle 3 sets of pegs need to have loose tension. And the last 3 sets of pegs need to have tight tension. Now let's do the figure 8 stitch using normal tension. Now let's be extra loose. Let's wrap our pegs more tightly now, and this will help prevent a pointy bind-off edge. And now it's time to knit over. So let's knit over on 9B, 8B, and so on. And we'll tilt our loom and knit over on 2A, 3A, and we'll keep going. Excellent! Now we're ready to bind off. Move 1A to 1B. Then dive into that top loop, grab the bottom loop, and pull everything upwards. Place that loop on 2A. Then dive into that top loop, grab the bottom loop, pull everything upwards. Put that loop onto 2B. Dive into that loop, pull up the bottom loop. Everything goes upwards. Now put that loop onto 3A. Again, you're going to dive in there to grab the bottom loop, pull your work upwards, put that loop on 3B. Go inside to grab that bottom loop, pull everything up. Now put the loop on 4A. You'll continue in this manner until you get to the right side. So now we have 2 loops on 9B. So before we do anything else, let's cut our yarn. We can leave 6 to 10 inches. Next, we'll dive into that top loop and we'll pull up on that bottom loop. Let's pull out the tail completely. Now our bind off is done and we can move the loom out of the way. Here I'm hand blocking it just a little bit. The corner is a little bit pointy, but I think overall it's okay. Let's have a look at the other side now. And let's thread our needle so that we can hide the tail. We'll tuck this tail back into the scarf. And cut off any remaining yarn. Now that this end of the scarf is looking good, let's move to the cast-on edge. I could cut the tail at this point since it already went through the width of the scarf, but for some extra security, I'm going to bring it back into the scarf again. And then I'll cut the excess yarn, and then our scarf is fully complete. Thank you for watching this tutorial on the CDD diamond stitch scarf. See you soon.